has labored, he has suffered to lead his people.
Illegalities in the trade continue to ravage our environment. We're seeing distractions of our forest reserves, our water bodies. It's going on to our main roads and things like that, our farmlands, and we've seen the implications on our health, we've seen the implications on our work, we've seen the implications on everything that pertains to us as a society, and which is why, as much as possible, we want to be vocal about it, and we want to be transparent with the people of Ghana on the measures that government is taking to be able to combat the illegalities in the trade. With that said, we had outlined a very comprehensive strategy that we had put together as a ministry or as government to be able to combat those illegalities. We are taking lessons from the past, we are taking inspirations from best practices, and we are also looking at projections to innovate for the future of the industry. And in doing all of that, our strategy involved very comprehensive and broad stakeholder engagements. We are also looking at making changes to our regulations, the regulations that define the mining industry. And then we also look at law enforcement, and we will speak to that shortly. Then while we are doing all of that, it was also important that we also look at how to provide sustainable livelihoods, whether they are alternatives or whether they are within the same trade, to people who are interested in mining, so we're able to formalize the sector for interested participants. And then while we do all of that, I talked about degradation. We've seen our forest reserves being degraded, we've seen farmlands. What is the plan for that? That is where initiatives like the Tree for Life come in, initiatives like the Blue Water come in, where we look at how to dechemicalize the polluted water bodies, how to bring down turbidities and all of that. So, like we had said last week, and like we had said right from the beginning of the year, we're going to be transparent to the people of Ghana. We started with showing us the picture of what it was at the beginning of the year. We've outlined our strategy, and then as we go along, we update you on what exactly it is that we are doing and the measures that we are taking, the successes that we are chalking. So all of us are involved. I always say that I do not breathe different air from the one that you breathe. We are in this together. We have a responsibility as an agency or as a ministry to coordinate all of our efforts, to take inputs from every Ghanaian, every well-meaning Ghanaian, to be able to do this and do this right. Your responsibility as media is to help us push out the narrative and the right narratives. And so whilst we push out the narratives, we drive the education, you bring in the criticisms and all of that, we're able to put all of it together, and the rest of us Ghanaians see what it is that government is doing. We are clear to say government is committed to this. Government is unwavering in its commitment to this. But it's important that it is not just talk, but it is action. And we cannot do this in silos. So once we are taking the action, we're able to show people what exactly it is that we are doing to remedy the situation that we find ourselves. So we started with stakeholder engagements this week. The British High Commission decided to host the Galamsey Speaker Series, where we brought experts together, so policymakers, medical experts, government officials, all of those together for us to dialogue and see where we needed to take corrective action, what we need to do to adjust the plans and all of those things. On the other hand, the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat, which is the central command center for coordinating all anti-illegal mining operations, has also been very active. Last week we saw the figures, we saw the work that they are doing, and they're still on. And as we go along, we'll keep updating you on the progress that they are making. The Blue Water Guards, which is the task force that we had set up to basically man our water bodies and ensure that we are warding off illegalities on our water bodies, have also been very active. So while the Blue Water Guards were focused in the Western region this week, we saw that NIMOS was focused in the Eastern region. Last week, we saw the activities of NIMOS in the Western region. This week, they were in the Eastern region, and particularly around the Odankwanta, Brim Central Municipality, and the Akantin Asamankese area, and where they had uncovered some illegal mining sites, some mini communities created by some of the illegal miners, and they were able to dismantle those sites. We know that some of the time, as soon as they see the task force, they bolt, and so they leave their equipment there, their shamfans, their excavators, pumping machines, all of those things there. What we have decided to do as a ministry is, for the materials that we can put to good use, we do. So if you recall, a few weeks ago, we handed over some water pumps to the Ministry of Agric for them to give to farmers, to disperse to farmers, so that the farmers can put them to good use. And so where they have water pumps that can be put to good use, they retrieve them, and then we bring all of them together, and then we hand them over to the Ministry of Agric. For the items that we have no use for them, or the items that are usually meant for mass destruction, those ones we destroy. So like the excavators, they demobilize some of them depending on if they're not able to move them. The chamfans and things, they destroy all of those ones. So in Old Abrim, Chencheku, the Oboho Forest Reserve as well, there were some incursions that had been made, and the team were also the NIMOS team also went into those areas. In Old Abrim, 3 of the locals were found on the premises of the illegal mining site. So those people were taken in for questioning, and in doing that, they also discovered another site. If you recall, we had said that NIMOS is an intelligence-led secretariat. So all of the things that they do, all of the operations, they try to drive that with intelligence. And when they got to Chencheku, they found out the illegal miners were mining close to the roadside, and it is one of the areas that NIMOS as an agency has also outlined to say, beyond the forest reserves, beyond the water bodies, if they find you on the roadside, that is a no-go area as well. So once they found out about that one as well, they were also picked up. And whilst NIMOS was doing all of that, on the other hand, we also saw the Blue Water Guards also quite active in the western region, around the Wasagona area, Bogoso, Bayeja and Mpoho, to be precise, where they had found some of these illegal miners on the water bodies, close to people's farmlands and things like that. And around the Takwa and Swayem area as well, near the River Bonsa, they also found a few incursions in those areas, and they were able to clamp down on all of those ones. Like I said, a few times, some of the miners bolt when they find the team, but they're able to at least seize or confiscate the items that they used. So I talked about the locals that were picked up around the Chencheku area. There were about 3 of them around the Old Abrim area. For excavators, we got about 12 of them. Motorbikes, we picked about 5 motorbikes, 4 excavator batteries, some computer monitors, heavy duty water pumps, 2 of them, several fuel drums. And last week the minister had mentioned the issue of the fuel drums, and it's a conversation that we are having with the NPA on how to tackle this fuel trade that is also I'm going to use the word again, fueling the illegal mining activities. Multiple makeshift structures, because usually they set up these campsites there. So if you saw from the videos, lots of makeshift structures which were destroyed. 24 pumping machines, 20 chamfans, almost all of them were bent. Actually, all of them were bent. And then other tools, boards, equipment, and things like that were all found and destroyed. So basically, this is the activities that we have, the team undertook in the course of the week, focusing on the two pillars within strategy, which is the stakeholder engagement. There were some other closed-door stakeholder engagements as well, with some high-level government officials, which is ongoing. Once we wrap up on those, we would also keep you updated on that. But whilst all of that is ongoing, at the Minerals Commission, the team is also wrapping up on the policy review that putting all of these in place, all these measures in place. We also need to look at the policy and the regulations around the industry and what we can do to make it better, tighten the gaps, the loopholes, so that it is easier for people to be incentivized by legalities rather than illegalities, so that if the regulations make it favorable for you to engage in the mining activity by engaging it formally or engage in it legally, that is a better incentive than the illegalities that it's putting all of us in a dire situation that we're finding ourselves today.
To the land of freedom, he's the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer.
Well, good morning to you, and thank you very much for choosing Pan-African Television. We're live from our studios in Abelingbe, and welcome you to the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. Well, this morning we're having a discussion on something that came up during our program last week. Of course, when Ebo Bachman was concluding on his very last round of discussions, one of the things he talked about was that they were going to announce the name of the party Solo has been telling all of us about for some time. And he said it was going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. Well, it turned out to be Thursday, when they actually outdoored what the movement for change will ultimately become. It is called United Party, or simply put, UP Plus. The plus because two things Solo says has changed. Solomon Owusu says has changed. One, they will be centrist. So they will be no more to the right, they are in the middle. Two, the United Party that, if you have been following history, is known for, one of the things about them was that they were very antagonistic to the Convention People's Party. He says they are not. In fact, they are welcoming everybody from both political divides, both currently and in history. So we'll talk about the outdooring of the United Party. Will it succeed where many other attempts at overthrowing the duopoly have failed? Then we'll turn to a discussion. In fact, 2024 we elected our first female vice president, a woman to the presidency, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. When would we actually have a woman rise to the rank of president? President Mahama believes it will be soon. There are those who suggest that he's talking about his own succession. But he did not say that anyway. We'll be talking about what that means and how soon that soon should be. In our third discussion, we'll talk about Palestine, the current state of the situation in Gaza as we speak. There's supposed to be a ceasefire, but people are still being killed anyway in Gaza. And then we'll conclude with the TUC, Trades Union Congress. Remember, famously, they took on the issue of Galamsey. Then, like it's famously said at Radio Gold, then they pulled foot. They withdrew unceremoniously all of a sudden. They are back. They said they will seek a meeting with the president over the issue of Galamsey. So those are the issues we'll be talking about this morning. Join us in the studio to talk about that as always. Always wonderful to see him on a Saturday morning. Kwame Kwesi Prajina, who is the General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. And towards me, sitting by him, is the Eastern Regional Chairman of the National Democratic Congress, the people who hold power currently. Also Director General of the National Information Technology Agency. And to my immediate right is lawyer Kwesi Kwachi Sebe, who is a member of the... Oh, thank you very much for drawing my attention to that. Dr. Macaulay Vakevo, I apologize sincerely. Yes, Dr. Macaulay Vakevo. Dr. Macaulay Vakevo is Eastern Regional Chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Director General of NITA. And then sitting to my right, so I will do it the way Doc proposed. Kwesi Kwachi Sebe is a private legal practitioner, a member of the MPP's communication team, and also a spokesperson for the Kennedy Ejipong for flag bearer of the MPP campaign team. Nice to see you and good morning to you. Yeah, finally I get to meet you. And then
but if I were correct, I'm not a spokesperson.
Yes, okay.
The campaign team.
A member of the campaign team. Okay. Duly noted. And of course, we would also be joined by the man who is now Director Legal of the newly formed United Party, Andrew Apia Dankwa, will join us to complete our panel today. Well, thank you very much once again. You're a big part of the show. Do share your comments and thoughts with us. Don't forget the show is live on Radio Gold. It's also live on many other affiliate stations across the country. I am Sena Nombo. Well, let's start with a discussion on the United Party. Lawyer will join us shortly and tell us more about this party. But the two parties, the NDC and the MPP, are the duopoly they are trying to overthrow. I will start with the people who are in power currently. The Eastern Regional Chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Dr. Macaulay Vakevo. Doc, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. And good morning to your viewers and your listeners as well. First of all, I want to congratulate the new political party. They prefer to call themselves the UP Plus, that's the United Party. When I heard the name for the first time, my first thought was that this sounded like a provocation. And to be honest, it's not just a name, it's actually a provocation. And because anyone who knows our political history knows that the UP United Party is not new, and the opposition NPP lays claim to the UP as its antecedent. So what I try seeing this new UP, as I want to call it, is also a way of branding for people to understand that the current MPP that traces its root from the UP may have veered off their roots, and that we represent the real UP that was originally intended. But we may not have time to go into how the breakup occurred. But normally when small parties are breaking up from big parties, they will cite internal factors, being non-adherence to internal democracy and democratic practices. And since my brother lawyer himself is here, he will explain further why they broke up from the MPP. But we all know that they started as a movement and now it's a political party. Normally movements survive on sentiments. Movements survive on anger. Movements survive on frustration of the people. You carry the people along when you form this movement. But once you become a political party, you survive on structures, on principles and discipline. So they should understand where they have come to, if they want to really survive and not behave as the previous smaller parties that we have seen in the past. This is not the first time that a party is breaking off. And in this similar provocation, we have experienced it before. You remember when the wife of our founder, Nana Knedu Ajimarolis, Her Excellency, after losing the primaries, the Sunyani primaries, to His Excellency Professor Ivan Sata Mills, decided to break off. She named her party National Democratic Party. People subsequently sometimes even confuse National Democratic Congress with National Democratic Party. And in politics, symbolism is very, very, very important. Same colors. There was even a public quarrel over who owned the umbrella symbol, if you remember those days. There were questions about whether even the bird on the umbrella was a dove or an eagle and all that. So we are used to such provocations. But the real test of a political party, as I said, is having your structures on the ground. Are you able to form structures? When I mention structures, I'm talking about real people who are representing you on the ground. We have close to 40,000 polling stations. Are you going to be able to recruit more than 20,000 people to man these polling stations for the party? That is where we test your survivor. And beyond that, most of these smaller parties that splitted from bigger parties also suffered from personality dominance. The party revolves around individuals. So you will see Dr. Obeda Samoa. Once that particular individual is off the scene, the party dies. We have seen others, Rekubro-based UGM. We have seen a number of these breakups. Ajman Kredu. So once it is not about Ajman Kredu, then the party dies off. It's the movement for change now, UP, just about Alan Kwadwo Kyerematen, or they intend to move beyond Alan Kwadwo Kyerematen? Do they intend to democratize their processes such that they are going to open up primaries? Somebody will want to contest Alan Kwadwo Kyerematen in their primary. That is where we test your being or your existence as a political party. If you are unable to adopt some of these democratic practices, then you may turn out to be just one of those surrogate parties who normally create nuisance when we are talking about serious matters in the country. We have seen parties who have turned out to be surrogates of other big political parties in this country. Look at the things that Kriadonko and LPG, Apalu and all. Look at the theatricals, the drama that they will be exhibiting sometimes at IPAC when serious matters were on the table. So we are hoping that the UP does not turn out to be one of those parties. And like I said, it is very important that they adhere to democratic principles. But you will know that in general, and there's theory backing, that in our kind of democracy, it is almost impossible to upset the duopoly, political duopoly. It is almost impossible, because the conditions that enable the duopoly are very, very entrenched. It's like an ecosystem with strong power networks, strong financial muscles, the people on the ground, strong bases, people who are emotionally attached to their political parties and may be unwilling to move whether their parties are performing or not. You know, so these conditions have kept these two political parties in place. And again, uncertainty. Nobody, people are very passionate about their vote. They can shout, oh, I'm a member of UP, I'm a member of CPP, I'm a member of PNC. When it matters most, when they are in the ballot box, they will say, should I waste my vote voting for a party that is not likely to win? And when you aggregate all this thinking of individuals who think like that, that is how bandwagon effect happens. They will say, okay, I think that this vote will not win, or will not give a win to my political party, so let me give it to a more viable political party. And that is how almost every time one of these two political parties happens. And it is not just about Ghana. Most of the countries that practice our kind of democracy will normally have this a duopoly in place. And that does not also mean that these small parties are irrelevant. No, they have their own relevance in our democracy. They shape the discussions, they shape opinion, they shape policy, and sometimes if they are strong enough, they move elections sometimes into second rounds and all that. So it is not that the fact that we have a duopoly, these small parties are irrelevant. They are very, very relevant, but we want them to be very functional. You know, if you look at the electoral, the political parties laws, and you want to apply it strictly, many of these so-called smaller parties may not survive. If you want to apply it strictly, many of them may not survive, because once it is formed, it is launched, the hard work is the grassroots mobilization, having offices in the constituencies, having people to man the offices, recruiting organizers and all that. Once you don't have this, there are certain smaller parties, it's just one-man show, and it's like an enterprise. They align themselves to one big party. That one big party feeds them surrogacy. They feed them. They come and make noise, either advocating for them or going against one other party, and that is how they survive. But let us see how this new party differ from the very many small ones that we have seen in the past.
Thank you very much. He's the Eastern Regional Chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Dr. Macaulay Vakebo. Since lawyer is here, okay, there are two lawyers on the platform. I mean, Andrew Apia Dankwa. So let's go to you. Let's listen to lawyer. He is the director legal for the new party. Good morning to you.
Good morning to your lovely viewers. Sorry for being late. I don't know. Today, strangely, there were too many accidents, pockets of accidents on the motorway. So, I have to let's also say hello to my former party mate, council. Pleasure meeting you for the first time on the show. Hopefully, we can have a very great discussion. First, I met my fellow Katangi. I was blown away by the level of his intellect and once again, I think he's done justice to the to the topic. This station is blessed with having a lot of great minds that come here to add value toward the discourse here, and also a good morning to the legendary Comrade Pratt. For me, I've said it so many times, I take so much inspiration from him, and if there's any reason for me to believe that the UP can survive, it will stick to principle, it will stick to our conviction, it will stick to what we claim we believe in, is words of Uncle Kwesi Pratt. The focus of politics in this country is all about what you chop, and so because of that, the culture we've created here has not made us to benefit from democracy. I wish I could start this discussion by going through history. I think it will come at some point in time. I think it will be more valuable to start this discussion by talking about politics first, and what the ends of politics ought to be. When you define, there can be so many definitions of what politics is. Some people tell you that politics is about how you distribute your resources. And in this country, I've heard people say that politics is about interest. So when you're making political decisions, as in how does that interest me personally? I agree with the first definition of politics about the sharing, about how resources are distributed. And because it's about distribution of resources, politics also involves power. How you use the power, how you acquire power, how you use power. Politics also involves how you formulate policies, how you make laws, and how you use laws. For me, the most exciting definition of what politics is the definition given by Aristotle. He said politics is the master science that is concerned with, one, the good of the state, and two, the well-being of the citizens. So for me, when I think about politics in all its shapes and forms, politics isn't just about you getting power and governing, but some people claim they're in opposition. Some people are political commentators. We have CSOs. You understand? We have so many institutions that are in the politics business. I think all these institutions ought to be governed by the hallowed words of Aristotle. So when you are doing anything, if you are practicing politics in any form, whether you are practicing in government, or you are practicing it in opposition, whether you are practicing it as a journalist, whether you are practicing politics as a CSO, in whichever shape or form that you are practicing your politics, your two most important considerations are, one, in how I'm practicing this, how does it build a strong state? And two, how does it inure to the well-being of the citizens? Because, you see, the thing is, where you have a strong state, then the chances of your personal interest being realized is very high. Once the state is strong, then the chances of your personal interest being realized is very high. And once you achieve that, then the second bit of the politics, you being concerned about the well-being of the citizens, becomes easier. And so when you go throughout the political history of Ghana, in whichever form or shape, Ghana when it was a Gold Coast, Ghana when it became, so when it was a Gold Coast proper, Ghana when there was some form of collaboration between the various, the four large sections of what is Ghana. And when I say the four large sections, we have the Gold Coast, we have the Ashanti, we have the Northern Territories, and we have Transwater Togoland. And when you also consider the problem that at every level politics sought to solve, and when you consider all that, then I think what happened on Thursday, in my opinion, is akin to what Roosevelt said on the 7th of December when Pearl Harbor happened, that this day will go down in infamy. And we make reference to that because of how things have progressed after. And so my hope is that there will be a time in future where people look on on Thursday that was a day that will go down in infamy in the history of Ghana as a day where there was a radical political revolution. And when I say radical political revolution, you agree with me that largely the politics in this country, as we do right now, is not a politics that is concerned with the good of the state. There's not a politics that is concerned with the well-being of the citizens. And so I can go into so many reasons why we had to leave the NPP. But I can tell you that the biggest reasons why we left the NPP, beyond all they've shifted from the core ideals of the NPP. The fact, the realization that this is a party that is no longer concerned about what the good of the state is. And is also not concerned about what the well-being of the citizens are. You understand? And beyond that, because we are not concerned about the good of the state, because we are not concerned about the well-being of the citizens, then how we do our politics in this country at all levels has seen a fundamental deprivation of decency. A radical one. And I think that I don't need to speak too much. I just have to point to how the NPP are handling their internal presidential elections now, to see how there's so little decency in our politics now. The fact that somebody can create some TV station and go and sit there and just throw insults, literally, anybody that matters in politics. Because I've said it here before, that for this democracy to survive, it's very important that this democracy survives because of what this democracy seeks to achieve. One being to guarantee our right to life, to guarantee our right to our liberties, to guarantee our right to pursue our own happiness. If this democracy had to have to survive, then it's very important that the right political culture is created. And every right political culture needs people to tolerate diverse views. That's how you can build the country. And so, fundamentally, what is causing us to form this party is an attempt to cause a radical political revolution in Ghana. And I'm so convinced that it will survive because of the caliber of people who are involved. Because beyond his Honorable Alhaji, I look at as in most of us who left the NPP when NPP was in power. So we're not scared of the so-called trappings of power. Now, you understand? If I look at the commitment levels of the members, Solomon Osu, YB, Nanaya, the fact that we've done a lot of things that we've done with our own financial, our own financial support. It's not like we are doing because we think that somebody will give us anything. And also because of the strength of the agenda. And this is a political party that is saying that what? Ghana first. That's the motto, Ghana first. You understand? In line with the first agenda of what ought to be the concern of politics in whichever form or shape that it takes to build that strong state. And the recognition that in building that strong state, there may be diversity of views. You understand? I need to create a culture that will tolerate that debate. Because now debating about what we need to do to build that strong state will be the easiest way of achieving that. Because of the negativity of the politics we've done, we have a state that is increasingly becoming weak. And it's increasingly becoming weak because it's becoming weak in its ability to create a system where the individual interests of its citizens can best be fulfilled. Now, this discussion will not be complete if we do not go back into history. You understand? Now, there are various political movements. You can go as way back as the Aboriginals' Rights Protection, which essentially was formed as a political movement to protect the indigenous rights to our land. If there's something fundamentally different or beneficial between us and a lot of our brothers in South Africa, the fact that we never lost control of our lands. You understand? Now, we usually tend to start our political discussion with the UGCC. But UGCC also was formed for a certain purpose. That was to fight independence. Now, out of the UGCC, the CPP was formed. Understand? The CPP came out because there was a fundamental difference in what certain elements within the UGCC were looking for as against the other leaders. Kwame Nkrumah felt that, listen, we needed to create a movement that was going to seek independence now. They felt that, listen, they wanted independence within the shortest possible time. Now, in 1951, when we had a new constitution that really gave a lot of power to the Ghanaian, or the Gold Coaster, or the Africans then, and elections were held, the CPP fundamentally destroyed the UGCC. And so, and there were other parties there. So there was a Ghana Congress Party led by, what's it called, Buzia. There was also a party led by Olenu. You understand? Now, at some point in the history of that movement, it became clear that Ghana was almost going to attain independence. So there was also a debate as to the governance structure, whether it has to be federal system, whether it had to be, and then within that disagreement, elements within the CPP, specifically from Ashanti. So yeah, the case about Vitosu, R. Ponsan, B.Y. Ade, you understand, led by Otum for himself, because up until that time, Ashanti was solidly CPP. This is the first seat ever won by any party other than CPP was in what was called my father's hometown in Kari, Nwabija, Ichima, Nwabija by Ekusi, Jeff Kusi. You understand? And so, and if you understand, know that even the name Osadifo was granted to Nkrumah by Asante himself. So Asante was literally CPP. Now, because of the disagreements, and key amongst them was, should the system be federal or should it be centralized? Should the system of governance be decentralized or should it be? There were a lot of disagreements. The NLM came out of the CPP. It was largely a party that was very tribal in nature. They all know about the law that prescribed parties that were tribal and, you understand, the Avoidance of Discrimination Act. And what that law did was it caused a number of parties that were largely tribal or sectorial in nature to aggregate and become one party. Now, that party has certain values. That party had values largely that was, I believe, in more decentralized government as against centralized government. It was a party that claimed that they believed in the values of liberal democracy largely. Those that government must do so with the consent of those they govern. Party that believed in individual rights and the protection of same. You get the picture. Now, those values, the party with those values, have, to borrow the words of Electoral Resource yesterday, have been rebranded over the years. So in 1966, the 1960 Constitution was thrown away. In 1969, they came as what? As PP. In 1979, they came as what? PFP. And in 1992, they became NPP. The names only changed, but the values remain the same. All this, then it was just a change of name, but the values remain the same. I believe in decentralization. I believe in the principles of liberal democracy. Indeed, these principles are entrenched in their constitution. So when you take the NPP constitution, they talk about the decentralization thing. They talk about the freedom of thought in their policy, and that policy is taken from a policy that J. Brankwa, you get a picture. Along the way, I don't know what happened, but sometime after 2008, the MPP departed from all these core values. the NPP departed fundamentally from these core values. The signs were there, but nobody had the courage to fight against this departure. I know that it's easy for the NPP to say that, after 2007, Alan Chamantin, after he lost, left the party. Factually, that's a very dishonest position. Because I don't know if you all watched the NPP Congress in 2007 live. And in that 2007 Congress, really Alan didn't lose. He was supposed to go for a second round. And Alan said, listen, because I don't want the party to disintegrate because of the tension there, I'm going to step down and allow my big brother Nanado to lead the party. So how can you then justify this propaganda that he lost the election and left? Now there was a story. Now when he stepped down and honorably allowed Nanado to go, after some months he said he had resigned. But he said the reasons why he had resigned. He said that there were deliberate acts at attacking his supporters. And those acts do not represent the value, the spirit of the MPP that he knew. And because of that, he was leaving. Now, in that period, for me, the most important thing was the letter that B.J. Darocha wrote when attempts were made to reconcile Alan back to the party. In that letter, B.J. Darocha was against bringing Alan back. And his reason was that Alan Chamantin has shown that where he's asked to choose his party over his country, he will always choose his country over his party. Now that statement in that letter is really profound. Now it tells you that this NPP has become a party, a group who have departed even from the reason why they ought to do politics. Because like I said, from the hallowed words of Aristotle, politics is the master science that ought to concern itself with the good of the state. So if you're a political party who behave in a manner that suggests that you put the interest of your party, or you create a situation where the interest of the party can be adverse to the interest of the state, there's no party that anybody who claims to be a patriot ought to join. But under no circumstance should the interest of the party supersede the interest of the state. But B.J. Darocha wrote that in that letter. And the MPP are very quick to make reference to that letter as vindication of why they should not have reconciled with Alan Chamantin. Understand? And that feeling, that thinking, that spirit has been manifested since the 2008 period. You understand? Which we should not clap a political party whose leader will be making statements like, or die be die. We should not be acclaiming such a political party. We should not be acclaiming a political party that allows vandalism. You all remember the incidents around 2014 when people who were deemed to not support His Excellency Nanado could not even walk in front of the party. That was vandalism that led to the death of an NDP regional executive. We should not hail a party as who behave in a manner that is adverse to the hallowed principles of the rule of law. A principle that is supposed to be one of the fundamental principles that underpin our 1992 constitution. Because what was the justification for the Afoko coup d'etat? The coup d'etat that saw the rule of Afoko, even though he had been voted into power by the Congress of the party. You understand? And we saw all those departures in the governance of Nanado. Because for a party that says that one of its abiding principles is decentralization, one of its abiding principles is decentralization. Under the watch of Nanado over the last 8 years, we saw about the most centralized system of governance in this country. To the extent that where school feeding, and, you understand, and all those that were being controlled from the top. We saw, because the party is not concerned with the good of the state, we saw the farce of a fight against Galamsey. We also witnessed it when Nana came and anchored his presidency on fighting Galamsey. Indeed, he said he had banned Galamsey. And Galamsey was even getting worse. And then for all of us to have a shock that actually Nado had received a report by the Venerable Prof. Frimpong Boateng that outlined the reasons why the fight against Galamsey was being lost. To the extent that in that report, it said that the president told his Minister for Natural Resources that the ban was to ban all mining activities in the forest reserve. And in spite of that, our forest reserve saw the most vicious attack in the history of this country. And to think that that report was shelved for 2 years. For 2 years. For 2 years, that report was shelved. And then when that report got leaked, the Office of the Special Prosecutor went after the minister who penned that report. You remember my issues with the appointment of elements who are believed to be MPP onto the EC. Now, if you are a politician whose focus is in building a strong state, then you ought to know that when you appoint people of any political coloring into a position, an institution, that for all intents and purposes is supposed to be perceived as neutral, then you are not building a strong state. So the brutalities in their internal elections. The case in point here again is the manner in which the agent of Wananchamanti was handled in Wale Wale. And the issues that caused Ken to say, I'll give you a showdown. And now we are seeing all those negative elements in how they are handling their presidential elections. That the NPP has not only become a critical example, evidence of what happens to any system that becomes a kakistocracy instead of a democracy. That indeed they are also now becoming a plutocracy. And you're having a campaign, and all we hear is of policies, all we hear is the sense of the candidates. 10 cents of this, 15, 16 cents of that, the 20 cents of that. And executives in the party can create stations and go and sit there and insult people in the party. So also there is a fundamental decay in decency in the party. But all those are not what any political party or what the original founding fathers of the UP stood for. So we had to leave that political organization. But the most important reason is Ghana, that we show that there can be decency in politics as a political party, and we show Ghanaians that really, if they want to fashion a politics whose focus is these two things, building a strong state and being concerned with the well-being of their citizens, then there's an obligation on us to create that right political culture. And that right political culture includes decency in our politics. To see ourselves as Ghanaians first. You understand? To create platforms where we can have genuine debates which is fueled by a sense of patriotism. And so now we are going to do that. I've heard the advice of my brother here, and they are solid advice. You can't run an organization without proper structures. Understand? But those proper structures must also be followed by the right spirit. You understand? A spirit of patriotism, but also a spirit of respect, a spirit of decency, a spirit of discipline. You understand? And we feel that the way we are doing our politics right now, it's been too divisive. And so we have come in, we have come in believing that, one, we can restore some decency to our politics, but two, we can lead the ultimate transformation of Ghana with our ideas. And we are not shying away from our great transformational plan, because that's the call to battle by this party, by the United Party. So we, in our declaration, we were not afraid to tell Ghanaians what we stood for. When we said what we are a centrist party, and we believe in building the private sector. We told everybody we believe in the Pan-African agenda. And we can point to evidence. Because one of the most fundamental Pan-African institutions created is the African Continental Free Trade Area. You understand? And a leader can proudly claim not just being what's called the Buddha of the institution, but even one of the key formulators of that idea. We came out of the UP, out of the NPP, but we saw a huge respect for the founder of this country, especially for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Because you see, that politics of seeing everything negative about your political opponents has to stop. You understand? And so when you are saying you are practicing politics, even in how you oppose, you need to ask yourself this key question: how does my opposition build a strong state, and how does it inure to the benefit of the citizens? And so, Senna, I can see when you start rubbing, I see that you want to tell me that my time is because if you leave me, I can go on and on.
Yeah,
but the most important thing is this: that we've reached a stage in our country where the political culture ought to change, where the reason why we do politics ought to radically change. We can't continue this politics of this parochial interest-led politics. I know a lot of people in the NPP. It's not all of them. It's not all of them that are fooled by that parochial interest. But for a very long time, the leadership of the party, the people who they've allowed to lead them largely, are people who are fooled by parochial interests, who do not care about the country, who do not think about how their actions, whether is in opposition, whether is in power, how their actions is going to help build that strong state. So yes, we are going to mobilize members, but also we are telling a lot of the MPP people, because in the last election, we were looking at the numbers. You had a situation where it was not, the MPP claimed that about 2 million of their supporters didn't vote. I don't know where, but I think the bigger story was about 7 million Ghanaians, about 8 million Ghanaians, even more than the number of votes the president garnered, who refused to vote. The biggest problem is the Afrobarometer report, which shows that the people of this country are increasingly becoming disillusioned with democracy. So this new UP won't fail because we fail to win political power, but we will fail if we fail in leading the charge to change the culture, the political culture in this country, from one that is largely parochial to one that is Ghana-centered. We will fail if we do not start the change for a politics that is one of decency. You understand? Because we need to have politics that is decent. You see, I can't just meet my brother MVP here only because he disagrees with my view, I will insult him. We can't show that negative side to the people of Ghana. You understand? And the MPP showed all what was negative in how they even handled themselves in the vetting of the of the ministers. said that in a simple matter of, we are tired, we are not tired, let's continue, we will continue. They did not care to destroy the property of Ghana. We would have failed if we did not change that culture. And so we've come in, and ultimately we want to win power. But the bigger call is to change the political culture in this country. The bigger call is to be part of the institution that will build that strong Ghana. Because if Ghana is strong, if we succeed in building a strong state, then the duty on politicians to fashion a system that will handle the individual interests of the citizens will be done. So the UP has come, and we say that it's Ghana first. And Ghana first should be the mantra of anybody who says he does politics in this country. Thank you.
Well, congratulations on your transformation from a movement to a political party. I hear you have a provisional certificate, which means you still have some things to fulfill, a few requirements to fulfill before they give you the final certificate. Anyway, I'll come to Lawyer Kwesi Kwachi Sebe shortly, but before we do, a few comments from those who are joining us via Facebook. KK from Kasua sends the very first comment. Baumia is a peaceful man, 2029, no matter what, he'll be sworn in as president of Ghana. I sent that from, heading right where he's sending it from. There's also this one from Dennis Akwete, who says the United Party, plus or minus, is going nowhere. Indeed, it may still not even get 1% in the 2028 election from the 0.2% obtained in the 2024 election as Movement for Change. At the very best, it may clinch some seats in Parliament if they work hard. That's the hard truth, consistent with our political history and coupled with the fact that Ghanaians are yet to show any signs of drastic foundational shake in our politics at the moment. The unspoken mission, however, is to render the MPP ineffective and weak, and they may succeed in doing so to some extent, and that may be transient. Once the MPP regains momentum, the United Party will fizzle into thin air and would have no option than to join the club of the likes of NDP and nothing more. That's Dennis Akwete. There's also Kukubo Stephen, who says UP Ghana first, UP Ghana shall rise again, and says good morning to you, Stephen. There's Alasan Hamdan in Tamale, Onyohini South, actually says the rebranding of Movement for Change into a political party is a step in the right direction. We need a vibrant opposition party that can put pressure on the government to ensure the right things are done. The MPP has become it's a useless opposition. And then Francis Gordon says United Party formation is welcome to contribute positively to the national building and to enrich the political system of Ghana with new ideas. The concern here is their symbol, butterflies. Butterflies do not live for too long, isn't it? Let us see what the future holds for the United Party. There's also Gafaru Jatong, who sends this. Prince Duzo says now that the UP is formed as a political party, let us now watch what will happen to the MPP tradition, because the ideology may change or crash as far as the new UP plus is formed. NDC will cross our fingers and watch them. There's also Ben Juke, who only says truth is here now. Then there's Nasser Mohammed, who says good morning. The reason we are discussing what I will call the reincarnation of the original UP is because of the way Nana has destroyed the MPP. I've said before in a contribution to another channel that Kufuor saw the dangers in the election of Nana when he was leaving power, but didn't have the courage to name Nana, who at the time was demonstrating all the negatives Kufuor was warning against. Unfortunately, when at the time Kufuor was now in a position to stand up for the party as an elder statesman, he failed. Even when Nana was taking over and creating a one-man show, he kept quiet. Even in 2020 with the Ijapa project in full flow, Kufuor in 2020 was campaigning for Nana. I am convinced MPP will splinter even more because there's nothing patriotic in the party as it is now. It will be good riddance for the nation's sake. Yusuf Mohammed finally says the fight against, he is talking about the fight against Galamsey appears slow to Ghanaians, but I believe gradually we will completely combat it. Lawyer. Okay. Let's hear your thoughts.
Well, good morning to your viewers and listeners. And also a very good one to all the panel members, especially the Kosi parts who are on such a huge platform. my brother, I understand you're all Katangis. I am also a Katangi.
Oh,
charge.
fellow.
Yes. I say a very big good morning to you. Doc Oliver, brilliant submission. As for my brother, yes, he's from the NPP stock, and I know him very well. Whether Solomon, Solo is my brother. Nice. Yeah, very good brother. We all went to Prempeh College and then to Tech. Yes. Ibo, Bachman, yes. All of them, yes. We fought together before. So we understand some of these things, and it's quite a difficulty for me when I'm speaking about a man like Alan Kodik-Chemantin, because I also believed in Alan Chemantin leading the NPP at a point in time. But with time, I realized that he was not the man I thought he was. That is why I had to abandon the ship and not follow my brothers to the UP plus, I don't know, whatever that is. Yes. When I listen to them, like the submissions lawyer just made, when I listen to Solomon Owusu, when I listen to Ibu Bachman, when I listen to even the man himself, Alan Chemantin, who I will repeat and say that I have a lot of respect for him and all the people within the party, I get a sense that they are not in to end any duopoly, but rather to break the NPP. That is the sense I get, and I will explain. Just this morning, lawyer has chronicled a lot of issues that is presented in a negative light for NPP. All the issues he presented, they are similar within the NDC, but he failed to point out even one. Because if your agenda saw the MPP going into opposition, because if MPP had won the 2024 election, it was going to be a very huge blow for them. I should say that Alan and all my good friends, you see, what I see happening, or what I would love to see happening, is that after the 31st of January 2026 primaries of the MPP, we will have our brothers back to the MPP. That's what I would love to see happening. So to me, it's very difficult discussing movement for change and then the UP. Now the UP plus, let's add the plus, because you are not UP, as we know. Now you say you are the center, isn't it? You are the center. UP wasn't at the center, and you've made a lot of, that's why I understand why you have the plus. We'll go into it. So it's difficult. That's where my difficulty lies, because I would love to see Solomon Owusu back to the MPP. I would love to see Lawyer Dankwa back to the MPP. And Alan Chemantin himself. It happened in 2008. As my brother said, it got to a point Alan Chemantin virtually left the party. We brought him back and we're happy for that. Look, the biggest losers of this UP, which has been formed, is the MPP. No doubt about it. In the year 2008, the election, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo led the first round. I think he needed about 25,000 or 30,000 votes to have become the president of the land in the year 2008. So, election is about numbers, and every number counts. Now, although it is seen, or people see it that the movement for change did not perform that well as expected of them because of the sheer numbers we saw whenever they moved. I think they got about 32,000, a little about 32,000 votes. Now, if we had these 32,000 voting for the MPP in the year 2008, maybe Akufo-Addo could have made the mark. So once we are dealing with politics and it's about numbers, and you are talking about 50% plus one vote, then if any member of yours is leaving the scene, you should do all that you can to bring the person back to your fold. That is why I am measured when I have to speak about the movement for change and the UP. I think one good thing that has happened to the MPP is the mere fact that Alan Chemanten contested the 2024 elections. That's one good thing that has happened to MPP. You see, my brother, how he can really speak and speak well. Look at Solomon. Look at our former secretary. Nana Ohininto. When Nana Ohininto speaks, you see there is wisdom behind it. The Adenta MP. Are these all not MPP people? The way they speak, when you listen to them, it is as if you are going for an election today, Alan Chemanten is getting 80%. That's what I'm saying. The best thing that happened to MPP is that Alan Chemanten stood for as an independent candidate behind the movement for change in the 2024 elections. And his performance was, for want of a better word, abysmal. Because if we have about 40,600 and something polling stations in this country, aside the special polling stations that we set up, and Alan Chemanten is getting about 32,000 votes, it means that he could not succeed getting a vote at each polling station. And with Alan Chemanten, we were made to believe, with the number of t-shirts that people were clamoring for, over 1 million t-shirts. And let me also add that the running mate is also my very good friend. Very, very, very good friend. We're in the same class together. So I have a lot of respect for you people. Please come back home. We need you. So if he could not get one vote from each polling station, it gives us comfort to a certain extent that, as my brother Dr. Oliver was saying, it is most likely that they will end up like all the other splinter political parties, like the NDP that are not hearing of. Because now, if you talk about this UP, it is all about Alan Chemanten. So where Alan Chemanten fades out, if you don't take, and I know very well it's going to fade out very soon, because after January 31st, we are bringing you all back on board. That's what I believe in. Alan Chemanten was a member of the NPP government. My brother said nobody stood up within the NPP when things were going wrong. My question is, where was Alan Chemanten? So the point he's making is that Alan Chemanten himself did not speak out. So do you then qualify to be the leader that I am supposed to follow? Not only that, he spoke about the attacks on Alan Chemanten's followers after the 2007 and going to the 2008 elections. I will not dispute that, although I don't have any facts in my hands, but I will not dispute that. But you see, the politics that we run in this country, look, Akufo-Addo faced the same fate after losing to President Kufuor, the then candidate Kufuor, at the primaries. He also faced the same thing, but he stayed in the party, he worked in the party. worked his way through and became the flag bearer and ultimately the president. Honorable Kennedy Japan, the showdown man, what caused him to say he was going to give the president of the land a showdown? It is because he felt he was not treated fairly during the primaries. Did he leave? No. He stood his grounds. He remained in the party, and is still a formidable member of the party. And I believe that he's going to emerge victorious in the upcoming primaries, which is slated for the 31st of January 2026. This is the kind of a leader that I want to see and I want to follow. Even where all the odds are against him, he will still stand strong and move forward. Alhaji Martin has shown that the little push, he will fall off. 2008, we saw it. This time, just the special delegates conference election, it happened again. He could not even wait when we thought his base was the grassroots and not the very top. Because it is true that the institution then was behind one candidate. So it was difficult at the top. So we were all expecting that Alhaji Martin will stay so that we see his strength as far as the grassroots are concerned. But he did not. He left the party. So what I see happening is that if any of you decide to push Alhaji Martin in the UP, he will leave and form another party. Yes, he will leave. But as a leader, I expect you to stand and fight with your people. You talked about Afoko, what happened to Afoko, and a whole lot. Since when did Alhaji Martin show that he loves Nkrumah? Since when? It is only after leaving the NPP and trying now to draw some votes from the NDC or the CPP. That is the time he is saying or he's making mention of Nkrumah. Look at a person like Kennedy Japan. He had an interview, I think Uncle Kwesi granted him an interview. What Kennedy Japan, who wants to be a flag bearer of the NPP, which is the true UP tradition, wants to be the flag bearer, says that the president whose mark he, Kennedy Japan, wants to beat is Kwame Nkrumah. That alone tells you that if you want a leader who is ready to align with both parties, it is not Alhaji Martin. He couldn't say this when he was in MPP. Kennedy Japan is saying this whilst in MPP. So my brother, as for UP plus matter, because we are still talking, I'm still talking with my friends. Solomon will come to my office, try to say, lawyer, we are going to come and let's go. I said, no, we are not going, we are staying and we are working for the party. Right now you are saying that MPP is supposedly saying that about 2 million people who did not vote were their people. Listen to your leader, Alhaji Martin. He is saying, he granted an interview with Roland Walker. He said that the 2 million people who did not vote are MPP people. That's what your leader said. And if they are, that's why I started by saying that the best thing that has happened to NPP is the mere fact that Alhaji Martin stood for the 2024 election. If he had not, the presumption would have been that Alhaji Martin's people decided not to go and vote. And that would have been a very dangerous signal for the MPP with the emergence of the UP now. But here's the case, your face was on the ballot. So if indeed you are the people, the chosen one, you are the person the people wanted to vote for, they had the opportunity. What did they do? They did not vote for you. You ended up with 32,000 votes. And even I think Chada, the votes that Chada obtained, Alhaji Martin couldn't get half of that. Chada was around 0.7%. Alhaji Martin was less than 0.3%. So that is what I am happy about. Had that not been the situation, Alan could have safely, and the UP could have safely said that our people, the 2 point something million people, did not vote because of Alan Chemantin. So we congratulate them. And that is the way to go. We've all chosen democracy. So if we don't agree with each other, we don't pick arms, we don't fight. Just like they've done honorably, left the party and formed their own. That is the way to go. But trust me, I don't see the UP Plus going far. I don't want to continue further because they are my brothers. And I will need them tomorrow. If I keep on, I may distort the relationship that is between us. You see, the NDC is very comfortable with with what is happening. I see Kevo in yellow today. I think Kevo is even more democracy. So you are celebrating UP Plus. Democracy. That is good. You see, the NDC is even much happier than. So that is how I see it. That's how I see it. But I think to a word of advice also to some of the communicators of my party, the MPP, we should be measured the way we speak with our fellow brothers at the other side, the UP Plus, because to me, we need them. This is politics and it's about numbers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll see who would actually, what do they call it, emerge victorious in this fight for invitations. You're being invited to their party. You are inviting them. So who says? We see who goes where. Well, this is also this is Papa Bisio Spinters who says, I strongly believe the UP Plus, the new party headed by Alan Chemantin, will surely perform better than the MPP in the 2028 general election. That's from my current observation of falling interest by the grassroots of MPP towards their party relative to the current excellent performance of the NDC government. Just look at how the city is enjoying a good ride relative to previous years at this time of the year. It should be depreciating but rather enjoying excellent appreciation against the dollar. Trust me, majority of Ghanaians, including the grassroots of the MPP, have realized how past MPP government wasted our time for 8 solid years, hence a move to either NDC or UP Plus relative to the majority of the grassroots of the new patriotic party. Okay, it says if UP faded out, all members will join. Okay, there's another person having their own hope that if the UP fades out, all their members will join the NDC. Hatch Tanko in Maida says, good morning, and says, Operation Will. Okay, it's difficult to read your comment, but thank you. Thank you very much. Please take your time and type the comments for me so that I can easily go through them. Musa Batos says, commendations to Alan Chemantin for his bold and visionary decision to establish a formidable political party capable of competing within Ghana's evolving political landscape. Given his exceptional caliber and outstanding track record in public service, I am confident he has much to offer to our nation. The real united party has indeed come to stay, and I extend my best wishes to them in their political journey ahead. Thank you very much, Musa, for sending that. And this one says, can the court stop Parliament from doing their... Okay, I think he's talking about something else. Thank you very much for that comment. Those are some of the comments you're sending to us. Mr. Pratt?
Well, I think it is important to appreciate that a huge seismic shift has occurred in Ghanaian politics. And it doesn't matter how big the United Party becomes. It doesn't matter whether the United Party wins elections or not. A huge seismic shift has occurred in Ghanaian politics. You see, if you want to understand what has happened, you need to go back to 1951 and look at elections in Ghana from 1951 up to 2024. And if you do that analysis, it will tell you the magnitude of what has happened. First, the first most important consideration is that the Dankwa Buzia Dombo tradition, the very first time it won elections which could be described as free and fair throughout our history was in the year 2000. And the records are clear. It won elections in 1969. But to do that, they had to ban the Convention People's Party. Not just that. To do that, they had to criminalize Nkrumah and everything that resembled Nkrumah or sounded like Nkrumah to win elections in 1969. Now, from 1969, the only election they won, which appeared to be free and fair, even though there were problems, was the 2000 elections. You understand? Now, to win the 2000 elections, mind you, you have to appreciate the fact that President Kufuor went out of his way to create a coalition of forces, different forces, to be able to win the 2000 elections. As a matter of fact, he built or contributed to building the Great Alliance, which is an alliance of Nkrumahs and Dankwa Buzia traditionalists and so on, to be able to win the 2000 elections. Okay. Now, later on, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo also won elections. But the point is that you need to look at the history of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, by 1966, was a card-bearing member of the Convention People's Party. Indeed, he was more than a card-bearing member of the Convention People's Party. He belonged to the most radical left wing of the Convention People's Party. So it was that when he was contesting elections, many people on the left of Ghanaian politics saw him as one of them. You understand? He was not seen as a typical Dankwa Buzia Dombo candidate. He was seen as a candidate in the middle, a candidate who was going to bring together different forces and so on. And this is a fact. Now, unfortunately, after winning elections, he then went on a bench deliberately to discredit Nkrumah, to promote his uncles who played a role in Ghanaian history and so on. What was the result? What was the result? The result was the devastating defeat that the New Patriotic Party endured in the 2024 elections. Now, clearly, those who have studied Ghanaian politics have said that in Ghanaian elections, at least from 1992, it has become very clear that there's no political party or tradition which can win elections on its own strength. This is a very important statement. That they cannot, even if they put all of their strength together, 100%, they cannot win elections. And that they need to build alliances and so on. Now, it's important to note that even the National Democratic Congress, you can demonstrate clearly that the times when it has won elections because it created the impression of a coalition of forces. Look, in 1992, Rawlings, with all that he represented and so on for the NDC, had to bring in Kensei Aka as his running mate, as a deliberate tactic to win elections. You remember? Now, in addition to that, they went into an alliance with all kinds of parties which were known to be non-NDC in order to win that election and so on. Now, subsequently, what happened? In choosing Professor Mills, to be a vice presidential candidate, his credentials also as an Nkrumahist became extremely important in that choice and so on. And I can go on and demonstrate, why, no political party in Ghana can win elections on its own strength, even if it's able to mobilize its strength 100%. And see, this is the reason why the choice of Matthew Opoku Prempeh as running mate in the last election was hugely problematic for the New Patriotic Party. This is why when he made statements like, and you're in Nkrumah and so on, and went on a bench, a misguided bench, to fight Nkrumah, who was not contesting in that election, because there was no strong Nkrumah's party contesting elections at the time. Eventually, the results of the elections clearly showed how reckless he had been in his campaign and so on. So that point is clear. So if you accept these facts or these analysis, then the exit of any part, any section of a political party, especially from the Dankwa Busia tradition, from the NDC tradition, has monumental consequences for that party. Again, you can go back to 2000 and examine the emergence of the National Reform Party. It didn't win elections. But what did it do? It damaged the NDC substantially and also contributed to the victory of President John Agyekum Kufuor. You understand? So that analysis is clear. And it's clear to the extent that any hemorrhaging from any of the two so-called big parties has monumental consequences. That's one. Now, why is this a major seismic shift? That's another reason. And the other reason is that the New Patriotic Party is a party which is struggling, and it has been struggling for some time, to create a united platform. It has gone to the extent of announcing an amnesty for all those who have left the party, who are angry with the party. They should come back. It is appealing to the Paula Focus, the Nyahoja Hota Macros, and all of them to come back. Why? Because it recognizes that it has a serious problem, that there's a dent in its very center. Now, why the party is engaged in this effort of extending olive branches and so on, bam! This shift has occurred. What does it say about the success of the attempt to bring everybody back home? Only one thing, that attempt has failed. Now, if that attempt has failed, what are the consequences of that failure? That's clear, you understand? What are the consequences of that failure to reunite the Dankwa Buzia Dombo platform? Now, it is not just also a very simple question of a failure of the attempt to rebuild the Dankwa Buzia Dombo platform. It is not just that. It's not just about the failure. It's about the weight of the failure. And if you're going to look at the weight of the failure, it becomes important to look at the stature of Alan Kojo Chamati. I've been around for some time. I've participated in shaping many developments in all the political parties. You understand? And so on. And Senna, I can tell you quite honestly that Alan Kodoche Martin is not just somebody who aspires to lead the New Patriotic Party. He's one of the very few people who built it from scratch. And I say this in all honesty. Why? The attempt to build the New Patriotic Party, the contributions that he made from the young executive forum as a businessman and so on, I mean, the contributions which he made, I mean, that story will be told at a later date. But he was most instrumental in the formation of this party. There were a few of them, but he was one of them. People like Mr. Kwame Pienim played extraordinary roles in building that new party. People like Darocha and so on. Now, if you just go into the history of how the New Patriotic Party became the first political party from 1992 to acquire its headquarters, and you look at the role that Alan Kodoche Martin played and so on, it should be clear to you who he was in that party and how he symbolizes more than what some are able to admit publicly. So this is a huge pillar. Now, you also have to weigh in the fact that by 2008, when President Kufuor was leaving office, there appeared to have been some understanding within that party that in terms of the hierarchy, he was next to President Kufuor. And nobody is going to doubt that. You understand? It appeared within the party, within the structures and so on, that he was a natural inheritor of the legacy of President Kufuor. Of course, he did not manifest and so on. Indeed, at some point when he had to exit the presidential campaign, he made a statement to the effect that he did not want to break the party. You understand? That he did not want to be the reason why the party was going to go through hiccups and so on, and therefore he decided not to contest the second round and allowed President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to be elected as the candidate. Now, nobody knows what would have happened if he had actually contested for a second round and the consequences that the party could have suffered and so on. But he was magnanimous enough. He looked at the future of the party. He didn't want to destroy the party he had contributed to building and so on. And therefore decided that, look, he was not going to contest the second round. And bowed out gracefully. This is the man. This is the man who is at the center of the formation of the United Party. And I think it is important to pay attention to these facts and to this analysis. Now, Senator, there's something else. The choice of name, I guess, was so deliberately done. Because look, many people simply refer to the New Patriotic Party as the UP. They talk about the UP tradition and so on. So UP, United Party, is akin to New Patriotic Party and so on. So this name was so deliberately chosen, so it doesn't sound new. It doesn't sound like something, which has been crafted newly and so on. It is at the heart of the history of the New Patriotic Party. It's at the very center of the history of the New Patriotic Party and so on. So carefully chosen. But you see, in addition to so carefully choosing the name UP, they've done something else. Now, if you listen to all of their communications, they're talking about UP plus. So they have stepped into this tradition. They're trying to own the tradition But they are saying that it is not just the tradition, there's something more. What is that plus? They are saying that we represent the best values, the best traditions of the UP. But there's a plus. What is that plus? And I've been listening to their communicators, and they're doing an excellent job of that. They're saying that we are not overly partisan, and that we want to be pragmatic. We want to stand in the middle. Okay? Indeed, what they're claiming, without saying it, is that they are social democratic and not extreme right wing. Listen to them very carefully. What is social democracy? Social democracy is an opportunistic political concept, which enables you to run with the capitalists, and when the capitalists, you can turn any way around and so on. You understand? And exactly, that is what they're saying. That's what they're saying. I mean, they're saying that, look, we are not steeped in this Dankwa Buzi ideology. And they actually go to the extent of making the point that if the government does something which is commendable, we will commend the government. If they do something that we think is against our principle and will not inure to the benefit of the Ghanaian people, we will criticize them, we would even fight them. That's positioning. That is significant positioning, and we should not lose sight of that. So they are positioning themselves in such a way as to become attractive beyond the Dankwa Buzia tradition. They are positioning themselves in a way which would enable them possibly to emerge as a significant third force in Ghanaian politics. And that's also most significant. You understand? Most significant. Now, I'm looking at developments before, development on Thursday, and developments now, and so on. And I'm saying to myself that if you look at the contest for leadership, flag bearership within the New Patriotic Party, it is obvious that there are cracks. There's a serious effort to paper over the cracks, but you just have to open your eyes and the cracks become obvious. Okay? For example, there is Kwabna Ejei Ejapon, who is one of the 5 flag bearers, but who has publicly complained about the monetization of the process of electing a flag bearer. He was reluctant to pay the 4-point-something million development fee and so on. He thought that it was an aberration and so on. Okay? That crack is obvious. You just have to open your eyes and you see that crack. Beyond that, there are some of the contestants who have publicly stated that this election in January next year, is a huge departure from party tradition and from any democratic ethos and so on. And that the election should have started from the bottom to the top and not from the top to the bottom and so on. That crack is obvious. You only have to open your eyes to see it. You understand? But there's even a more serious crack. What is that more serious crack? You see, when all the candidates went to file their nominations, only one candidate's process was captured on the official communications platform of the party. And this became a major issue. You're saying that, look, the party is biased in favor of only one candidate and so on. Now listen to the explanation that the party gave. The party comes forward and says that, oh, we are sorry that it happened. Unfortunately, the person who is managing our communications platform is not a party member. It's an outsider, that we have contracted to do this. Whoa! Master, can you believe this? New Patriotic Party. Its major communications platform is not managed by the party. It's not managed by a party member. Some individual from somewhere and so on. That's the explanation. Now, the explanation itself is problematic. But beyond the explanation being problematic, if the party allows a situation where this open bias in favor of one candidate is allowed to happen, my goodness, there's a problem. There's a huge problem. Okay. Now, there are those who are predicting that if this perception of bias is confirmed in the election of the flag bearer, there will be major fallouts from the party. That some people will leave the party. I'm not a soothsayer. I cannot join the soothsayers on this. But just in case it happens, what the United Party has done is to position itself as the political receptacle which will be receiving these fallouts. That's important in the analysis. That's extremely important in the analysis. Okay. Then the other thing for me which is very important in this analysis is this debate about core values. What are the core values of the NPP? Are the core values being upheld or not? Who best represents the core values of the UP tradition and so on? That debate itself is very, very harmful to the New Patriotic Party. Forget whoever wins that debate. The fact that today, amongst right-wing politicians, right-wing traditionalists and so on, there's a debate about core values and who best represents those core values and so on is not healthy for the New Patriotic Party. So whatever happens, the New Patriotic Party is limping. But Massa, there is more. You understand? There is more. This is not the only development. We have been told by some prominent members of the New Patriotic Party that they also intend to form another political party from the New Patriotic Party. You know, Dr. Mwakuba and co. Okay? And it does appear that they also are engaged in feverish preparations for the launching of a New Patriotic Party, launching of a party which to all intents and purposes will be a break away from the New Patriotic Party. My goodness, if that happens, what again? What again? Now, this is a party which is already limping. This is a party which is in huge distress. If this happens, whoa, my God, it's going to take an awful lot of time and effort to heal the wounds, to reconstruct, and even to begin to position itself as a credible, viable political party. I am tempted, and I'm truly tempted to say that the singing of the Requiem Mass has begun for the New Patriotic Party. But I'll restrain myself. You understand? I'm tempted to say that the singing of the Requiem Mass has begun. But I'll restrain myself. But I'll restrain myself for a number of reasons. The first reason is that in any analysis, you ought to take account of what is referred to as the imponderables. And there are many imponderables, you know, in this analysis. And for that reason, I'll restrain myself. I would also restrain myself because we are dealing with human institutions. And the most distinguishing thing about human institutions is that they can change due to some stimulus that we can always not discern. Okay? And if there's stimulus that we can always not discern, and I cannot discern, then I'm not going to be making statements like this is the requiem mass and so on. Because for all you know, it may not be a requiem mass, but maybe it can be at some future date the singing of the Hallelujah chorus. Okay? So I restrain myself. But the signs are not looking good. The signs are looking terrible for the New Patriotic Party. And the earlier they walk up to that realization, the better it will be for them. I wish the better. And you know why I wish the better? I wish the better because we have adopted for ourselves multi-party rule, whatever it means. And indeed, there are indications, if you've been watching Ghanaian politics from 1992 to the present, the multi-party rule itself can be most decadent. Okay? But that's what we have elected for ourselves. A multi-party rule can only survive, can only be enriched if the strength of the competing parties is improved. So I don't wish a situation where there's only one strong political party in Ghana. There ought to be many political parties with sufficient strength to challenge themselves and to create a certain balance. I wish the New Patriotic Party well.
Thank you. Thank you very much for concluding the debate on the UP, United Party. They were outdoored just last Thursday. But you know the lead faces. And one of the interesting things about what Lawyer and Solo did, in fact, that on this platform, we struggled for a while to get the MPP people onto the platform. And we discovered Solo. Every time he'll be here, he said he doesn't mind whoever you bring, he will come. Then he brought Lawyer in. They enriched the debate. So in the matter of political communication, they have made a huge impact. In places,
It's a superstar of political communications.
Yeah.
I mean, every radio station is looking for Solomon, every TV station is looking for Solomon, and you should just see the number of posts, social media posts, after he goes on any program, and the number of views he's attracting, and so on. Now, I've been having conversations with him, and the last time I spoke with him, he said, but it is Pan-African Television which created this, and so on. Maybe it's true. I salute his honesty and his recognition of what Alhaji and Pan-African Television have contributed to making him what he has become. Of course, if there's bad material, no matter what contribution you make, it will not gel.
Yeah.
So he must have had something going for him already. You understand? So, and Lawyer has become such an important commentator too. Yeah. I mean, Lawyer Apia Danko has become such an important communicator, today in Ghana. The two of them have become a formidable pair. And that is one of the factors that people who are examining the UP and its emergence have to take into account. It appears to have very formidable communicators who have gained a lot of respect, like Philip London, and so on,
Well, thank you. Let me do just a couple of comments, then we turn to our very next topic. Yusuf Mohammed says the UP appear more scary to the MPP than Movement for Change. The MPP do not deserve to be in the circle of the largest political parties we have because it's a threat to, he said, Ghana's growth and our democracy must be resolved by any means possible. That's Yusuf Mohammed who sent that comment. Magdo says Akufo-Addo has been the most ingenious politician I have ever seen in the Fourth Republic. Akufo-Addo succeeded in killing the ambition of Mr. Alancho Manting, and never again should anyone from the stock of Akufo-Addo lead the MPP. What was the contribution of Akufo-Addo in the formation of the MPP? So I can tell you that after their presidential primaries, another party will be formed again from the MPP. Magdo sent that from Alhaji. There's Charles Thompson who says Kwesi Pratt is an erudite of the highest order. Make no mistake about that. There's Jonas Jesse who says, in fact, I don't know the thinking behind choosing the name UP by Alan, because we all know, or some of us know, that Osie murder and the trouble the UP tradition has taken this beautiful country of ours into, especially Kwame Nkrumah. Alan should have known better and maintained the butterfly rather than the UP. He has diminished his credibility. And that is the end of Alan's political career. There's more comments on it. There's Kwesi Akwa from the UK who says NDC, MPP, and UP or any political party formed is okay. Politics in Ghana is pure business, simple. However, our country, Ghana, should develop with all the great minds and ideas that Ghana is looking for. Political parties are to create harmony and build a nation for the people. It is time we begin to think about the role of the state in forming political parties in Ghana. Ghana needs political party reforms now. There's Tafa in Amrahia who also says, good morning, Senna. When the people said Nanado's government was not fighting Galamsey, they were right. And I can assure you the Nanado government knew what exactly was happening with regards to the destruction of our rivers and vegetations. Thank you very much for that comment. Okay, Prince Henry Kofoidua, who says the formation of the UP by Alan is not and will not be a problem for the NDC, rather to the MPP. UP will even become the second force if the MPP fails to elect Kennedy Japan come January 2026, because I foresee Ken breaking away if he doesn't win the flag bearer race next year, January. As for Madam, the law is the law. Okay, she says she's fighting an unnecessary battle. Because there's somebody from the Kennedy Japan campaign team here. Anyway, we have to move on to the statement that was made by the president that has raised two questions. Was he talking about his own succession? And if he is not, the suggestion is made when? It's about him saying we would have a female president soon. That makes a lot of sense. We have a female vice president. So it's just one step more. We get to a female president. In fact, when the president is not in the country, she acts. So we have had a female acting as president. Well, let's start that discussion. Once again, I have to start with the Dr. Macaulay Vakevo on this one. Doc?
Whether the president was referring to his successor or not, whether I've said it, whether Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman shows herself up to contest for MPP flag bearer or not, she has a place in NDC. She has a place in history, and nobody can take it away from her. She's breaking a number of ceilings. First female vice chancellor in Ghana, first female running mate on the ticket of any of these big parties that we've been referring to, and subsequently first female vice president of the Republic of Ghana. So that is history enough, whether she decides to contest NDC primaries or not. That is history enough. She has her place in there. So I think that the president was not talking really about timing, but rather direction, a matter of trajectory. You must understand the context of which His Excellency John Dramani Mahama was speaking. He had attended a women's gathering in Beijing, and he attempted to paint our journey as a people as far as women empowerment and women amplification is concerned. So naturally, if Ghana has been able to produce a vice president in our recent history, it was only natural that very soon we will produce a woman president. It's not far from history once we have been able to hit here. But we should understand that in terms of our journey, we have had some women who have played a role in our political history. If you start from the likes of Hannah Kujo, if you read history, pre-independence and immediately post-independence, through to even the Rawlings era, the role of Her Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo Rawlings in trying to institutionalize women's role in our politics, in our body politics. At every corner of this country, we had a 31st December women's representative, 31st December women group. And in fact, when we formed the NDC, most of these 31st December women's women had, benefited from such experience and naturally migrated to become branch women organizers, constituency women organizers. In fact, many of our pioneering women as a political party were members of this 31st December women's movement. So we have done well as a country. And if you look at the Fourth Republic itself, in terms of women representation in Parliament, we have had a Speaker of Parliament who is a woman. We've had that before. We have had a Chief Justice who is also a woman, from Georgina Wood, and then recently to CJ Tokunu. So we are doing well as a people. And then we've had the Chief of Staff who was also a woman recently. Now the real challenge is where there's competition, in terms of where there's where you have to appoint, where you have to select people through appointment and all that. We are able to do well there. But where the women have to go the steep slope and compete for the positions, that is where we have a challenge as a people. So if you look at Parliament, for example, we are doing less than 15% of women in Parliament, because our Parliament is strictly elective. People must go through rigorous primaries, win in their political parties, and then compete in the general elections. So we are doing just below 15%, below the AU benchmark of 30% of women in our legislature. So where we have to elect the women, we are not doing very well. The women, some of them have attempted elections. In the past, it was only men on our ballot paper until I think in 2020, where we had about 3 women on it, but they lost. Nana Akufo-Addo Rawlings, Akua-Donkor, Bridget, PPP candidates. Despite the fact that they lost, for me, it was to also indicate that yes, it is not just a men's job. Women can also play that role. Then, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama's bold decision to amplify a woman, and not just because he wanted, or because Professor Nana Jane was a woman. The caliber of Prof, an accomplished woman, but it took His Excellency John Dramani Mahama to take that bold decision, because we are in a society where our views, our perception about women in leadership, we were not really matured to a certain stage. So it was a risk that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama was taking. I remember during those times, there were a number of people who had done research, both internally, externally, who were pointing to the fact that Ghanaians were not ready to vote for a woman, whether as a running mate or whether on their own as candidates. So it was a big risk that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama was taking at that time. But he had his own beliefs and faith in what Professor J. Nana was bringing on board as a ticket. And today we have it in history that she is the vice president, you know. So for me, the president's call that soon we will have a female president is also a call on the political parties, which is largely the vehicles through which we have these candidates, to do some work internally to create the environment to produce such history that we are looking up to, you know. Because like I said, if you the real game is down there, where you need to campaign, you know, in a system which is highly dominated by men. If you look at our electoral college, for example, for every branch we have just 1 out of 9 of the delegates being women. So if you aggregate everything, you have less than 12% of women in the whole electoral college. So right from start, any woman who tries to contest is starting from some 50 meters behind the starting line. And that is one barrier that as political parties we must look at. So if we would need to amplify women, we need to bring women to the forefront through elective processes. Then we must also put some reforms within our party structures. And it is similar to the MPP. If you look at the MPP, they have 5 executives at the polling station level, and mostly it is one that is a woman, the polling station woman organizer. You understand that? So it is difficult for women to win elective positions in our body politics than the men. Again, you have financiers who are men, you know. So clearly the gatekeepers, those who really condition the system that produces these candidates, everything is dominated by men, and we need to look at that structures very well. So yes, soon can be tomorrow, but the real barriers against women leading is real, especially for elective position. But it is not just in Ghana. If you look at Africa, how many women have gone through the process, won elections? Maybe Liberia, Salif Johnson. Apart from her, most of the others, they become leaders by accident. Maybe they were vice, a president is gone, and then they take over. Some of them go ahead to contest main elections and lose. So there are real barriers, you know, and I'm sure over time we'll overcome them. And when we get there, and we have a woman presenting herself on the ticket of one of these big political parties that we have in Ghana, then we know that we are really getting close to that dream. So the president's speech was aspirational. I'm not sure it was just about just this particular what is ahead of the NDC. You know, NDC is highly democratized. We'll go through a process. We'll open nominations. People will be allowed to contest. It is difficult to control and say that we should leave it for just a woman to go and all that. So I think that it was aspirational. He was looking at our trajectory, where we have come from, where we have gotten to, and where we have gotten to is historical. No political party in Ghana has been able to put a woman on the ticket at that level and gone ahead through elections twice. We lost in 2020, but His Excellency John Dramani Mahama wasn't perturbed. He was still confident that no, Professor Nana Jane is the right person to partner me, especially during that time. And lo and behold, 2024, it worked. And now we have history. that she's a vice president, first vice president. Maybe other political parties from now will be looking at it, and see whether, for example, it's really added on to the huge victory that we had. Going forward, it may become the norm. It's just like how the North-South balance started. People now have come to think that to be able to win an election, the ticket must be a North-South balance. It got to a point people even thought that there could be some religious balancing. This particular election, didn't really prove that. On our ticket, we had 2 Christians on our ticket, but yet Ghanaians saw beyond just a religious balance. So over time, if the women advocacy also becomes very stronger, people may be looking at political parties that are balancing in terms of gender on their ticket to choose from. The determinants of voters are very broad, and some people may be looking at, or some people may be interested in a gender balance. And once it has been proven that yes, a woman can do it, we've shattered the ceiling. Now we have a woman vice president. Over time, I'm sure other political parties may also look at that.
Thank you very much. Let me do, I think, only one comment, then I'll come to lawyer. This is from Dennis Yakwete, who says, indeed, Ghana would have already had a female president in 2024, 7 now, if the 2020 election was not robbed. But as it is now, I'm not sure. For some factors, the VP may want to contest the next NDC presidential primaries. But if she attempts, I will support her, though I have a preference, who has not, as of now, disclosed his intention. And if the VP decides to contest, I would advise my preference at this point to lobby to become her running mate instead. Lawyer.
Yes, Senator, thank you. I believe reading the president's statement on that, what I see is not just the trajectory, but the timing as well. Because he says that Ghana will have a female president in the near future. In the future, yes. From all indications, it is clear that Ghana will one day have a female president. But if the president is talking about the very near future, he is the president. Where he sits, I don't sit there. He knows what he's saying. So I think it has to do with timing as well. That is electing a female president within the shortest possible time. He gets all the national security briefings. I never contemplated that it is going to be in the near future. I know Ghana can have a female president, especially so that we, as we speak, we have a vice president who is a female. And I congratulate President Mahama for that bold decision he took. Even though he was not successful the first time, he repeated it. And the question to ask is that, Vice President, is she performing her duties as a Vice President? Is she doing well? I don't have any reason to doubt her competence, and I don't have any evidence to show that she's failing on the job. No. So if we have such a woman as the Vice President, and as you rightfully stated, when the president is out of the country, she becomes the president. Has she failed in that state? No. So it means that yes, Ghana can have a female president in the near future, and it may be coming from the NDC's quarters because the president has spoken. In this country, the population census has shown that we have more female than male. If for nothing at all, for this reason, at least we should also give them the chance. My brother doctor rightfully made some analysis, which is true. We have women at the helms of affairs. If you look at our electoral commission, we've had Charlotte Osei as the electoral commissioner of Ghana. and now we have Jane. Is it because of the two Janes? This is Jane Mensah and Jane Nana Opukwadma. And you can see they are performing their duties. At a point in time, the three arms of government, two were led by women. That's during Professor Mills' time. We had the Speaker of Parliament in the person of Mrs. Bamford Addo. And at the same time, the head of the judiciary, Georgina Wood. And they performed creditably. So you can see that we have women of substance who are capable and will be able to lead this nation. But the sad truth is that all those positions are per appointment. Although they are capable of running the show, they are not being elected. Now, when you look at the history, you realize that the women who put themselves out for election are always very few. I'll take the two dominant parties, the MPP and then the NDC. Let's look at the parliamentary even system and even the presidency. I don't know, but has anybody has any woman in the NDC or in the MPP attempted to run for the presidency? I don't think so. If there is anybody that we saw the ambition in,
I mentioned Nana Kwame.
no. Yes. Nana Kwame. Yes, that's true. Nana Kwame Ajimai Rawlings, fantastic woman, and look at the work that she did for women during the days of the PNDC and then the NDC. And I will say that she is one person who aided in giving women the voice that they needed in this country. Within the NPP, I don't think any woman had been bold enough like Nana Kunedu Ajimai Rawlings to contest. The only person that we saw those traces in was the late Hawa Yakubu. Good, because of the Kumsen. Hawa Yakubu. He's the only person that we saw that in. Now, if you go even into the parliamentary system, you realize that the women who put themselves out, I'm talking about the primaries, are always running below 15% of the number of people who attempt getting the nod from their party to represent them. The same way, those who get the nod are also always low. Now, when we look back to, I think, the seventh parliament, yes, you realize that we had about 35 women in parliament, representing about 12.75, let's say 13% of our MPs. Only 35 out of 275. Now, to the 8th parliament. The 8th parliament, we added 5 women. We had 20 on the part of the NDC, 20 on the part of the MPP. So we had 40, which is also roughly around 15%. So I was expecting that as we are moving from the 12, 13 to 15, this time around, and very much so that we had a female running mate, we should have been hitting somewhere the 20s, 25%. But unfortunately, if you look at the 9th parliament too, the women are about 40, the same as before. Now the question is, why are they not stepping out there to be elected into office? I see 2 major reasons. One is the monetization of our system. If you don't have money enough to dish out to these delegates and things, what we've created for ourselves, it means you have nowhere going. And that is something that we should look at as a country, because it is not helping us. I don't think money should prevent us from getting the quality that we need to step foot and lead this country. The second issue that I see is the politics of insults. It is just getting too much in our system. Once you're entering into politics now, you should have that big stomach to harbor all manner of nonsense. Why? Because somebody who has never had contact with you will just know that you are coming from position A or position B. You see, even before, when you are on shows like this, before a man speaks, messages have already been sent to attack the person. Why? Because he's coming from NDC or he's with the NPP. That is not the way to go. We are able as men to endure some of this pain and then move on. If, for example, Uncle Kwesi Pratt is to tell you the pain he has endured in this country, right from the days that he always categorizes till now, you realize that he's developed a tough skin to move the way he's moving now. But how many of our female aspiring politicians are ready for this? You step foot there and even your wife will tell you, hey, why are you going into politics? They are going to insult you. Can you stand it? So I think the politics of insults, if we really want our women to be out there with the qualities they have to help this nation and become the number one as the president, a female president, then we all need to speak. I know we speak against it, but it appears that the more we speak, the higher it gets. Especially with social media now, it becomes very, very, very difficult to control those things. So the policies of insult and the monetization of our political system is gagging our women from coming up. But I believe that in the future, I don't know how near it is, but we have a president, a female president, because once the president is not there, we have a female who is performing creditably. So I see that what President Mahama said is not far, but whether it's so near, it is the NDC that knows. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I like how you place the onus on the National Democratic Congress. Well, I'll come to you, Andrew Apiadankwa. First of all, let's say a big thank you to Kiss FM 89.7 in Takrady, Shine FM, Akaji 96.9, Hills FM in Adaklo, 91.7, Newasi Radio in Ketekrachi, 89.7 FM, Stella Radio Dabala, 97.1, Diamond FM in Tamale, they are 93.7, Bewa Radio END 106.5, Radio Kitao 95.7, Benya FM in Elmina 105.7, Global FM in Ho 105.1, Zeps FM 95.9 in Zebila, True FM 92.5 in Adeso, Lamara FM 89.1 in Tripoli, Boem 88.7 FM in Jessica, and Lukusi is on 96.1 in Vergolo Kwati, then Tyne FM 90.9, Sekbele 104.3 FM. There's Akwini Radio in Kpando, Denigba Radio 90.9, OT Radio in Dambai. Thank you all very much for offering us your platform this Saturday morning.
I think my two brothers have done justice to except to add that for me, what the president said, beyond we looking at whether or not to get a woman president in the next election or not, should engender an immediate conversation on how we can strategically as a people fulfill the call to include every Ghanaian in our politics by dealing with the problem why most women are not involved actively in politics. Because if we want to do politics that will build a strong state, there must be a politics that includes, not excludes. And there must be a politics that includes all the various talents in this country, irrespective of your gender. And for us to have built a politics that has not maximized our use of the huge talents that our women possess, for me, it doesn't augur well for all of us. I see, to understand the extent of the problem, I think they've analyzed the issue well, because we have a country like Ghana with the kind of culture that we have. About 47% of Ghanaians are Akans, and Akans are a community that is matriarchal in nature. You understand? So, us, unlike the whites, have always had a society where women have been at the forefront of decision making. We've had queen mothers in our communities since when? You get a picture. But you see, last time we were talking about reparation, and we were talking about cultural erasure. I think one of the evidences of the impact of the influx of the white man here can be seen in how our women certainly have lost influence, because in their culture, women were treated as property, as chattel, really for a very long time, to the extent that it was as recent as the dawn of the 20th century that women had a right to contribute to their politics. In the UK, women had suffrage, I think in 1918, in the US 1920. But when you go to the history of Africa, so many examples of women who have not just been, let's say, bystanding contributors, but have actually led in our politics. You understand? Mind politics isn't just about democracy. So you will go to Angola, you come to Africa, Yes, Antoine, all the various women, they are the forefront of our politics. And so our history is replete with stories of the contribution of women in building this society. Now we are having to have this discussion because, like once I can say, because of the impact of colonialism and all, and it compounds the problem. So that if you want to create a system where we can lay claim and include women, then I think we need to have a holistic strategy. You understand? And that holistic strategy probably would even have to look at how our communities are, as in the cultures in our communities now, in our schools, as in how do we train our women to be more assertive, as in to believe in their potential, to believe in their ability to also contribute to the politics. You get a picture. I think there must be a radical shift in how we bring up our children, because for us from 1951 when we started voting, women have always had the right to vote. Women have, and you know until they until they and in fact that Alasan, the first woman minister. So we didn't have a system where there had to be a conscious struggle like happening in the US and to get women involved. Right at the beginning, women had always been a part. So why are they not interested in elective positions like my two brothers analyzed? And they did a great job giving us the percentages, which would tell you the extent of the problem. Why is it that women are not interested in elective elections? Is there a case that we must apply some form of affirmative action there also, strategically, to get more women involved? Must we look at a cultural setting? Must there be a realignment of educational strategy? Because when you go to the various spheres of our country, you go to medicine, you go to law, you go to the various professions, women are making huge strides there. Why have we not seen that in politics? So for me, I think the president's call or prediction, or whichever way you look at it, must reflect in the policies of the government too. There must be policies that will draw more women, that will create a situation where more women will be interested in putting themselves up for a position. For me, it ought to be a collective effort at all levels. By all, if it means, like I'm saying, we having an affirmative action, so be it. And I have no doubt that if we're able to do that, create a situation where the women have confidence in their ability to lead. And in that, we all need to commend the few women who have put themselves up. I have no doubt that they have the talent, they have the spirit, they have the value set to contribute to our nation building. Because for us to succeed in building this strong state, then it must be a system that includes as against excluding. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Of course, we are discussing the president's comment, and perhaps the discussion has been about what we need to do to open up the space for women to get to that level, especially for them to compete. That's the most important. To get to the presidency, you must compete to lead your party or as an independent candidate. And we've seen many people actually try within the smaller parties and they've succeeded. Mr. Pratt?
Well, first of all, I don't see the problem which is worthy of discussion. There's no problem here. Look, is anybody saying that women should be excluded from becoming presidents? Who is saying that? So far, I haven't heard anybody courageous enough or perhaps stupid enough to make the claim that women should not become presidents of Ghana. Nobody has said that. The 1992 Constitution is clear that women can also become presidents of Ghana. Nothing against that. Okay? Sana, common sense. Common sense. You have a population. The majority of the Ghanaian people are women. Are we saying that the majority of the Ghanaian people should be excluded from attaining certain heights in certain fields? What can that reason be? You understand? Now, this is not a Ghanaian aspiration. This is a universal aspiration. Gender equality is a universal aspiration. It is not a Ghanaian aspiration. And so I don't see why anybody is making any noise about what the president said. And what the president said is so very clear. He didn't say that Akosua-Mensah will become the next president of Ghana. He didn't say that Adelaide Ejapong will become the next president of Ghana. He's simply saying that he believes that very soon a woman will emerge as president of Ghana. There's nothing wrong with that statement. It should have happened a long time ago. We are late. Why? All these men running around wanting to be president. What do they have that men don't have? Show me. Hey, sorry. But all these people running around wanting to be president, what do they have? They should come and tell us what they have, which women don't have. I think sometimes when you listen to public discourse, if you don't take time, you will say some things, you understand? Because women have a right to lead. And women have led before in very difficult circumstances in history where exceptional leadership was required. Many women emerged and they led their communities, they led their countries to substantial victories in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, everywhere. So there's nothing against the leadership of women. Of course, they are stupid men. And they are very, very stupid women too sometimes. Okay? So when we talk about women leading, we are not talking about any woman leading. We are talking about, just like when we talk about men leading, we are talking about women with the capacity to lead. And there are so many of them. They have more capacity than the men. You understand? So I don't find any problem with what the president said. Why? President Mahama should be respected when it comes to the question of elections and choices that we make. Look, in the last elections, he insisted that his running mate was going to be Professor Nana Jane Opoku Ajimai. So he said, oh no, you can't have a woman, it's too early. And so, you remember those arguments? Yes. Look at the election results. He has been vindicated. Completely vindicated. Look at the election results. Amazing election results. Perhaps, again, since 1951, this is the first time that any political party has achieved this result. And it was with a woman running mate. People kicked against it for all kinds of reasons. Now, Senna, if you have an attitude or a policy, a certain disposition, which makes you deny more than 50% of your population the right to participate in the advancement of your society, you are a fool. Finish. Is there any other better word than fool? If there is, tell me, I will draw fool and I will use that word. Is there any better word? 50% of your population, more than 50% of your population, say, no, as for them, they cannot do this. But do what? Do what? Look, in any case, the president did not mention Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. He didn't. But I'm going to mention her. My brother, look at the woman we are talking about. Look at her history. Look at her record of achievement. How many men have that? Both within and without the NDC. How many men have that? Why? I won't take you too far. When she was nominated as running mate to President John Dramani Mahama, her acceptance speech, all of you here, you saw it. In the last election, that was the best performance. If I lie, tell me. The best performance in terms of articulation, in terms of her understanding of the issues, in terms of her command over language, her command over facts and so on. In the last election, no speech was better than hers. That was a remarkable speech. And so on. What is the problem? Even if President Mahama said that she would be my successor, what is the problem? Show me what the problem is. Master, not just that. In the realm of the academia, Master, a very tough realm, she emerged as the first woman vice chancellor in our history. Is that not a huge statement? How's all this? Look, I think it's important for us all, when we are engaged in public commentary, to eschew our selfish interest and so on, and to look at the bigger picture. In fact, the whole morning, that is the point that Lawyer Pierre Danko has been making on this panel. What is the bigger picture? There is a Ghana which is sinking. There's a Ghana which is suffering from huge debt burden. There's a Ghana in which its people's access to health is limited. There's a Ghana in which even the supply of potable water has become a huge problem. There's a Ghana in which cocoa production has been reduced by 50%. This is the Ghana we are talking about. How do we lift this Ghana from the doldrums? That's the issue. It's not about the personal ambitions of twisted minds and ego-driven fools. That is not what it's about. It's about substance. That is what we should be talking about. And then some people say that, oh, Ghana is not mature. We will never accept a woman president. Who told you that? What is the basis of that claim? What is the basis of that claim? Well, Ghana will not accept a woman. Who told you that? What is the basis of that claim? Look, it is possible to get a woman presidential candidate who will be very, very, very bad for this country. And I've seen some. I mean, the last election, I saw a few. I saw a few. I heard them speaking. I wanted to die. So, you're not talking about a woman. But when women are qualified, they should be encouraged to move forward. In any case, when you talk specifically about Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, she has not expressed any interest in becoming president. I haven't seen any moves to suggest that she's jumping over others to become president and so on. She doesn't care. She's just doing her job. You understand? If indeed President John Dramani Mahama was referring to her, Perhaps they have been working together in the Flagstaff House. I'm not there. Perhaps he has seen something that somebody hasn't seen. You understand? Perhaps it is also a smart move to send a signal to all those who are peaking before their time around him and messing him up and messing his legacy, that they should be careful. And that this is the signal he's sending. If that's the signal he's sending, it's a fantastic signal. It's an important signal. It's a signal that people should take note of, and so on. So, Senator, me, I don't see any problem. There's nothing against one becoming president of Ghana. You understand? And then, when you make specific reference to Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, I hear some people say, oh, but she's old. She's old. What? She's what? Old? Who is the president of the United States of America?
Donald Trump.
How old is he?
He's 78 old.
It's ridiculous when people refer to age. It is ridiculous. Look around the world. Why? I mean, only last week, Paul Biya was attempting to become head of state of Cameroon. You're talking about age?
79 now, yeah.
What a ridiculous position to take. Age. Age. And then they say, oh, but you know, she fell sick some time ago and she had to be taken abroad for treatment. We are not so sure of her health. What? Where is that coming from? Senna, last week, one of my greatest friends, childhood friends and so on, he called me on phone. You know, I missed the call. I tried to call him back in the night. He didn't pick the call. I called him in the morning. I called him at 10. They say he died at 8 a.m. Oh. I mean, who is to say who is going to die? Why are people playing God? Who is to say who is going to die and at what time? Health? Why? In this world, when it comes to death and health, there is serious overtaking. Check. Look into your own family. Look into your community of friends and so on. So, what is this thing about health and death and so on? Unbelievable. I think we should stop this. I'm not a member of the NDC, and that's a fact. So I will not vote at their Congress. My mouth won't go far when it comes to who to choose as their leader and so on. But I'm a Ghanaian and I have common sense. And I have a right to apply my common sense. I don't see anything wrong with what President John Dramani Mahama said. Look, read his speech. I've taken the trouble to read the speech. He's saying that, look, we are committed to ensuring that there is gender equality in Ghana. And that over the years, we've done many things in order to promote gender equality. And that we have appointed people into the security services, the echelons of the security services, into so and so on. He lists a number of places where women's empowerment has been manifested. And he says, based on all the good work that we have done in terms of the empowerment of women, I am confident that very soon a woman will become president of Ghana. There's total panic. People are running helter-skelter. Some are falling down, you know, and so on. Why? Because they know themselves. Because they know themselves. Boy, I'm telling you, they know themselves. All those people who are on social media struggling to become next president and so on, they know they're incapable. They know their strength. They know their weaknesses. This thing has shaken them. Charlie, it has shaken them brutal. They are falling off. They are dazed and so on. Let us be serious. Rescuing Ghana is the agenda. And how we do that cannot be based on gender discrimination. Finito. Matter close.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Don't forget the show is live on Pan-African Television, live on our social media platform, Facebook, Pan-African Television, and of course live on Radio Gold 90.5 FM. Ernest Everlove Kwashi Dansoman says the time is ripe for Ghana to have a female president, and that must be accomplished and distinguished. Professor Nana Opokwa Jiman has the political gravitas, knowledge, wherewithal, and acumen to become next president of the Republic of Ghana. That's Ernest Everlove Kwashi who sent that. Well, just quick comments on the matter of let's go international on the current situation in Gaza. Just very, very quick comments. You have to do that within 2 minutes. And I start with you, Lawyer Pierre Dankwa.
I think just we have just about 10 minutes. I think the call is simple. I've seen the supposed peace treaty and all. I think, you see, justice for Gaza will not be concluded unless the people of Palestine have their own state. That's what I'm saying.
Dr. Kabel.
Well, for me, our president was very equivocal at the last UN General Assembly. Even though after that I listened to some MPP elements who actually did not understand our non-aligned position as a country in terms of our foreign policy. They mistook non-aligned for inaction, and that is where the education must go to those people who felt that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama was aligning to one side or the other. Ghana has been very consistent on the Palestinian matter, on the matter of that we identify Palestine as a state. We have voted, all the past governments, including the MPP government, the previous NDC government, have voted for Palestine as to be recognized as a state on its own. And we have been very, very consistent. All the calls for ceasefire, we have voted for it, and we've been consistent historically. So there's nothing misnomer about what the president said there. We were very, very particular about it, except that perhaps this time we have been very, very strong on our advocacy than we have done in previous years. That is what I can say about that.
Yes, I think we're experiencing peace over there now, but it's better late than never, because what saddens me is that within a short period, Gaza was almost wiped out. Why couldn't we have this peace earlier? Those who contributed to this peace, they've done well, but I think it delayed. This is how I am seeing it. Was it a pattern that let's allow Israel to virtually wipe them and later come in and create this sort of peace? Because the damage that has been occasioned them, my brother, is devastating. And I just can't imagine how we allowed that to happen before signing a peace accord. But it's better late than never. That's what I'm saying.
Well, this is Tom D. Tom from Cape Coast. Please, and I agree with Comrade Pratt. What Ghana needs is substance and credibility. Who in MPP flag bearer contestants is better, more credible, honest, and has more substance than Her Excellency Jane. The combination of them cannot even surpass Professor Jane. Comrade?
I think that sometimes the world gets delusional. And this is one instance where we become very, very delusional. There's no peace treaty. There's no ceasefire. They're still killing people. I mean, yesterday they were killing. 3 days ago they were killing. Even the so-called treaty, which says that they should allow 600 trucks to enter into Gaza. For the first 2 days, no trucks entered. Now Israel says that there's a right to limit the crossing, of the Rafah crossing. Only 300 trucks a day should go into Gaza. The trucks that are going into Gaza are less than 300 trucks. We should stop living on delusions. And Senna, Why? Everybody in the world, I haven't heard anybody apart from Netanyahu and his gang of genocidal leaders. Everybody says that you cannot have a solution to the Palestinian question without the establishment of a viable Palestinian state. Where is the Palestinian state? How can you be talking about peace in Palestine without a Palestinian state? Look, you have a situation where today, anybody, black and white, anybody, European, African, whatever, if you claim to be Jewish, under Israeli law, you have a right to return to the land of Palestine and to settle. But Palestinian refugees are refused the right of return. Where is the peace? Where is the settlement? Where is the peace? Where is the settlement? You have all of these Western leaders calling for the disarming of Hamas. These are the very leaders who supplied the weapons that Israel used in the commission of the genocide in Palestine. Nobody is talking about an arms embargo to Israel. Nobody is talking about limiting Israel's access to the deadly weapons that's used in Palestine. In fact, more bombs have been dropped on that little space, Gaza, than were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. More journalists have been killed in this conflict than in any other conflict in history and so on. Nobody is looking at that. And then there is this talk about an international force to govern Gaza. Only Palestinians can govern Palestine. That's a fact. And the worst of it, I heard that Tony Blair, former British Prime Minister, certified liar. You know, the man who told lies, on whose basis, the lies he told provided justification for the invasion of Iraq, leading to the death of nearly 2 million people. He is the one somebody proposed to go and head Gaza. As what? A new conquest? I think they should stop this nonsense. Stop it. What is needed in Palestine is genuine peace. And genuine peace is possible only with the emergence of a viable Palestinian state with secure borders. Genuine peace is possible in Palestine only when the right of refugees to return is restored. Genuine peace in Palestine is possible only when the Palestinian people are protected against the apartheid genocidal colonial occupation of Israel. They are talking about these captives, these Israeli captives and how they suffered and so on. Have you seen the videos of the Palestinians who were released from Israeli prisons? Have you seen those videos? Horrible, horrible. The Israelis released dead bodies, dead Palestinians to a Palestinian state. Some of them are still tied. Their hands are tied, their legs are tied. They were shot, cold-bloodedly murdered. The atrocities which have been committed against the Palestinian people. But the interesting thing is that the world is not asleep. The whole world is wide awake. And the whole world is engaged in a struggle for the freedom of the Palestinian people and the establishment of an independent, viable Palestinian state. Nothing will stop that from happening. Finish.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that concludes our show for today. Let me say a happy birthday in advance to one of the persons who watches us almost every Saturday, Harry Hammond. Happy birthday in advance to you, and also happy birthday to one of my bosses, Laurentia Abna Ura, Princess Law. Your birthday is on Monday. Happy birthday in advance to you, and a happy belated birthday to my colleague Guy Richard Nono. A happy birthday, belated birthday to you, and happy belated birthday to Dr. Kweku Bram Labi. Thank you very much for making time to join us on Alhaji and Alhaji today. A big thank you to my panel for today, Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr., who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, of course, lawyer Andrew Apia Dankwa, who is now Director Legal of United Party, UPND. plus. And of course, a pleasure to once again host the Eastern Regional Chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Director General of NITA, Dr. Mark Oliver Kevo. And then sitting to my immediate right, for the very first time, a member of the MPP's communication team, and of course, a member of Team Ken, the campaign team. Lawyer Kwesi Kwache Sebe also joining us today. I am Sana Nombo from the team here at Pan-African TV. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a fruitful week. We'll see you same time next week.